Hello Internet, my name is Claire and I am a dancer and dance fitness instructor. And today I'm giving my honest thoughts on the Fuegos dance shoes. These are specifically the ones with the Jade collab. I've been wearing these for about a month now on multiple different terrains, so I have a lot of thoughts on these. This is not a sponsored video whatsoever. I bought these with my own money for my own purposes, and I didn't see a whole lot of reviews prior to me getting them in a way that would be helpful to me. So I'm gonna do that. Also, this is my cat Lily. She will be hanging out because she loves attention. Now, if you've never heard of Fuegos, they are a dance shoe brand and they specifically make sneakers. They do make jazz and hip hop shoes as well, I believe, but they specialize in shoes that look more incognito and are designed for more of a streetwear than your typical in-studio experience. What makes Fuegos special are the turn points on the bottom of the shoe, and I'll be talking a little bit more in depth about those later. But for my use case as a dance fitness instructor, I am dancing a lot, and I'm doing a lot with my knees, and there's a lot of torque and tension. And I got a Zumba certification back in May of last year. And after that, I started ramping up my dance, and then I realized my knees were in so much pain that I was seeing multiple doctors, I was making dietary changes, and for almost 8 months, I couldn't figure out what it was. And there was some other stuff going on too. I ended up cutting out gluten, and that's a whole other thing. But I was still experiencing so much joint pain, and I just couldn't figure it out, and so I needed something to change. And I was attending a Zumba class that I do regularly, and one of the older women mentioned that she happened to get new shoes because her knees were bothering her. And it sparked a thought that, why don't I try out a different set of shoes? So I did. Now, for reference, these are what I was wearing before. I believe, these are Reeboks. I have no idea what maker model these are. I honestly got them at TJ Maxx. But this is the bottom. I'm sorry they're dirty, but you can see the threads on this and how much friction this creates when turning. You can see on my heel point here where I've rubbed it down. Same thing on this one. And that in itself was causing a lot of friction on the floor, which is really great if you are running. But if you're turning, not the best thing for your knees. So in comparison, this is what the Fuego looks like. And as you can see, the treads are very, very different. And I have to say, it has significantly helped a lot, even more so than I thought I would feel it. I do still have a little bit of knee pain just from overuse and dancing over the years, but that comes down more to me pacing my body than it does the shoes. When looking for new shoes, I got really into the research of different soles, and Fuegos still turned out to be the best because these two turn points. And that's really, really cool because it reduces the friction on the knees by allowing you a space to turn. Now, Jordans, which you see a lot of hip hop dancers wearing, they have one at the front. And that's still really helpful. Jordans are great. I think they're really cool. I've never personally owned a pair, so I can't speak to them. But in terms of that functionality, you're still going to get part of that there. But Fuegos are unique because of the two. And I have to say, as a Zumba instructor, it has been incredibly helpful for a lot of those heel-based movements. Now, the specific version I got are the Jade collab. Now, Fuegos has a lot of different styles. These are the ones I personally gravitated more to. The other ones tended to be a little more suited for just like general Latin styles or like streetwear or group dances. So for me personally, who's doing a lot of group fitness, these were the coolest and fit my style the best. Now, these come in blue as well. I wanted the blue ones a lot more than the green. However, my knees were in such a condition that I couldn't wait because they were on back order for high demand. So I just decided to bite the bullet and go with the green, which I found rather difficult to style, and I'll get into that at the end of the video. I'm more of a blue girly, if you couldn't tell, but my ceiling is green, so there is some green in my heart too. These are also promoted as being a little more eco-friendly because the fabric is made out of recycled water bottles. Now, to be totally transparent with you, I haven't done the research to say if that's true or not. I used to work in sustainability, so I would like to think it's true, but I also have suspicions about potential greenwashing. But the fabric does look like it is made of recycled nylon, and could definitely be made out of water bottles. And the fact of the colors being in blue and green is very common for recycled plastic materials as well. So to me, that does make sense. But I also can't call out whether it's 100% sure, true or not. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to trust the brand and trust that the research they've put in and that they are going to do what they say they're doing. Now, when I first pulled these out of the box, I had some mixed feelings. I thought they kind of looked like clown shoes, and to me, that's because of the color and the shape. Objectively, I don't think there's anything wrong with them. When they're styled well and on, they do not look like clown shoes. But if you don't style them well, unfortunately, they tend to lean a little more clownish. Now, the color is so bright in person. They're really cool. It's a really fun color, but it's not something I would naturally gravitate towards for myself. However, with some practice styling them over the last month or so, I have kind of gotten a style down with them in a rhythm, but it's not as effortless as the blue ones would have been for me. Now, because the fabric is stripy like corduroy is, I also found that could look a little bit childish at times, and the laces being so white out of the box didn't help. But with some wear, they've definitely got some dirt on them. They're a little more worn in. They don't look as crazy. Now, not having worn shoes with turn points like this before, I wasn't sure if the turn points actually moved or not or rotated. I can confirm and say that they do not rotate and they are hard plastic. What's super cool is that the material of the turn points is harder plastic than the material of the sole, which is a bit more rubbery. So the rubbery sole provides a little bit more friction, even though there's not a lot of threads on it, while the turn points allow it to smoothly glide across the floor, which I've noticed has been very helpful. That being said, due to the minimal grip points on this shoe, the first time I wore it to a group fitness class, I thought I had messed up and made a mistake because these were so slippery and so glidey that for the choreography of the class, my muscles were overcompensating and I felt like I was doing more damage to my knees than I would have in a regular pair of shoes. However, since then I've learned that it has a lot more to do with the choreography in that specific instructor, and I've worn them to multiple other classes and been totally fine. That being said, these shoes may not be well fit for every single dance fitness class out there, but for most cases they do work fine for me. My dance fitness choreography doesn't do a whole lot of jumping, so it works for my classes, but I've also worn them to hip hop and soca classes, and they've done great there as well. Getting into the pros and cons. The pros of these, they do overall look like a general street shoe, which I really appreciate because I don't like shoes that look like they're very utilitarian. Some of the other Fuego styles borderline looked like restaurant shoes to me, which is not a jab at all at them. There are people who can make that work. However, that is not going to work for my specific style. I did really appreciate the intention that was put into these with the stitching. However, I was really taken aback that there's actually no lace reinforcement at the top of the shoe. And that's one of the reasons why it looked slightly clownish to me at first, but I couldn't put my finger on it why until the other day. Now, these do have a plasticky reinforcement, but it's more that it was just a glue than it is like a metal ring. So that is one of my big gripes about it, is that if I'm going to be paying $160, $180 with shipping, I would hope that there'd be reinforcement on the laces. I'll do a close-up so you can see this a little bit better, but aside from the actual lace reinforcements itself, you can actually see the foam from the inside of the shoe around the tongue, and I feel like that's just something that they could have covered up with stitching and makes it look a little bit sloppy, especially when there's so much other intention put into the shoe. Those things really stand out to me. Additionally, straight out of the box, I thought these did look a little bit cheap. Even though I'd spent so much money on them, I was like, there's no way that these funds compare to the quality of this shoe. However, after giving them a fair shot, I do think this is a very well-made shoe in that we've actually just been so conditioned with cheap shoes, feeling light and airy, that something that is this light in first impression is going to come across as cheap even when it's not, because the difference with these is that these are actually incredibly stable, and while they have compressed a little bit and been shaped to my foot, the sole of this is not that spongy material you get with a lot of shoes. So I do think that was very intentional. And of course, you don't want something super clunky on your feet. And these are probably going to be a lot lighter than a Jordan or a Nike would be. I don't think that it's actually a cheap shoe at all, but we're so used to cheap materials being light and airy like that, that unfortunately plays into how you may react about this. Fuegos also have incredibly good cushioning, so much to the point that these are actually the most comfortable shoes that I own, and I find myself wanting to grab them even when I'm not doing dance-related outings. I do have incredibly high arches, so I did add sole inserts into them, and I haven't found that to be an issue at all, but these are by far my feet's favorite shoes. The dual turn points were the main reason that I bought the shoe, and I can say that those are 100% worth the hype. They've taken off so much pressure from my knees, and they make the dance fitness and just dance experience a lot easier for those of us who might not have the best knees from dancing in our youth. I also love that Fuegos are made to dance on all surfaces, not just studio flooring. I've danced on grass, concrete, tile, marley, like even rubber mats, and I have to say, grass is actually the easiest because there's enough friction from the grass that you're not sliding everywhere, which I found really surprising. But after grass, I would say marley is the best, and then the gym flooring that you find in a lot of like workout gyms, then concrete, and then rubber mats. The rubber mats provide a little bit too much friction with this rubber sole. For me personally, with a bit more dancing on rubber mats, I'm sure they'd be just fine. Now, overall, are the Fuegos worth it? I paid $160 for these shoes with an additional around $20 for taxes and shipping, and I can say that they are worth it to me. That does not mean they will necessarily be worth it to you. As a dance fitness instructor who is on my feet all the time, has a lot of torque in my knees, and my knees are a little bit damaged from my years of dancing as a kid, these are worth it to me because they help me from a health perspective. But if you are just dancing with your friends casually, I don't know if these would necessarily be worth it unless you're dancing multiple times a week and really getting your use out of them. I could definitely see how the slipperiness of these shoes could also really bother some people. So if you don't have the muscle stabilization or don't need to be overly slick, I don't think these would be the best shoes for you. Now, on the contrary, these shoes actually did help me grow as a dancer, which is something I didn't think I would ever say coming into it based on a pair of shoes. But to explain, I grew up doing jazz and ballet a lot more than I ever did hip hop. And I always loved hip hop, but let's be honest, I just did not have the swag that I wanted to have when doing that. But these shoes have helped me lean into the glidiness and flowiness I need for some of those movements and just kind of tap into a different set of muscles and way of moving with myself. So if that's something that you're looking to have, I'm not going to say you're going to have the exact same results as me, but it is a possibility. So with that being said, please make your own decisions when purchasing these shoes. I hope this review was helpful for you guys. If anyone is interested in any of my dance fitness classes, I do have some roughly, it's not polished, it's not clean. I'm not defending it any more than that. I do have choreo videos available on my channel, so you're welcome to look at those. Or reach out to me if you're interested in coming to any of my classes in person. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. Keep dancing. Please take care of your bodies and don't mess up your knees.